Daniel Cormier had some really fascinating insights about Alex Pereira's fight. DC was absolutely blown away by Pereira's takedown defense against Magomed Ankalaev. You know what really stood out to DC? He couldn't believe how good Pereira was at stopping those takedowns. But at the same time, he spotted a major weakness in Pereira's game. DC made it crystal clear. Alex just isn't the same fighter when someone's pushing him backward. Seriously, the pressure and pace from Ankalaev made all the difference in that fight. Even though Ankalaev couldn't secure a single takedown, which is insane when you think about it, he still found a way to win. Can you believe Pereira defended 11 out of 11 takedown attempts? That's 100% perfect takedown defense. Every time Ankalaev went for his legs, Pereira adjusted immediately. That's seriously impressive wrestling defense from a guy who's primarily known as a striker. But here's the game changer. Ankalaev never took a step backward. He kept coming forward, and that put Pereira in some really uncomfortable positions. You could see it in Pereira's face and body language. He wasn't his usual confident self. Did you hear the urgency in Pereira's corner? His coaches were freaking out. They knew exactly what was happening. Their fighter was struggling with that relentless forward pressure. Tonight proved what many suspected. Pereira just isn't as dangerous when he's forced to fight going backward. Don't get me wrong, he's still an incredible fighter and stayed competitive throughout, but Ankalaev's game plan was absolutely perfect. He refused to back up, controlled the positioning, and that's why he walked away with that win. Alright, let's talk about this huge news. Jon Jones actually wants to fight Tom Aspinall. For months, there's been all this speculation and accusations that Jones has been ducking Aspinall, but Dana White just cleared everything up after UFC 313. Before we continue, make sure to hit that like button to support the channel. So here's what's been going on. Throughout most of 2024, Jon Jones kept brushing off the idea of fighting Aspinall. His reasoning? It supposedly doesn't do anything for his legacy. I mean, Jones has already cemented himself as one of the greatest MMA fighters ever, so in his mind, fighting Aspinall isn't necessary for his GOAT status. But things just took a fascinating turn. After UFC 313, Jones actually admitted he'd fight Aspinall if the UFC paid him enough money. That was the first real sign this dream match might actually happen. And now we've got even more information. Aspinall himself recently said the fight hasn't been signed yet because Jones and his camp are holding things up. But when Dana White was asked about this after UFC 313, he shut down all the rumors. According to Dana, Jon Jones absolutely wants this fight. Dana said the only thing left to figure out is when and where. The UFC is targeting this summer. Possibly UFC 317 on June 28th in Las Vegas during International Fight Week. Could you imagine a better stage for this mega fight? So what do you think? Do you believe Dana's comments? Is this fight a done deal, or is it all just talk until we see those contracts signed? And get this, after Magomed Ankalaev won his championship on Saturday, he made a bold claim. When asked how he would have done against Prime Jon Jones during his legendary 205-pound run, Ankalaev didn't hesitate. He straight up said he thinks he could have handed Jones his first legitimate defeat. That's an incredibly confident statement considering how dominant Jones was in his prime. Do you think Ankalaev could have beaten Prime Jones at light heavyweight? One of the biggest disasters from UFC 313 was that tons of ESPN Plus subscribers couldn't even watch the pay-per-view. So many people had streaming issues and social media was absolutely flooded with complaints. Dana White acknowledged these problems after the event, and he was clearly frustrated about it. He said, "Yeah, there were problems buying the pay-per-view on ESPN Plus. I don't know what happened with their platform tonight, but there were a lot of pissed off people. Because of all the outrage, ESPN eventually made the entire UFC 313 card free to watch." MMA analyst Luke Thomas confirmed this on social media. He said he was going to buy UFC 313 on ESPN Plus the morning after because he needed it for work, but to his surprise, it was completely free. So while it absolutely sucked for the people who paid to watch it live, at least those who missed it got to watch for free later. Did you run into any problems watching the event? If Pereira had defeated Ankalaev, the conversation around his next fight would be completely different. The hype for a potential showdown between Pereira and Jon Jones would have been through the roof. But since that didn't happen, Aspinall made it crystal clear. Alex Pereira fighting Jones next is completely off the table. Aspinall echoed exactly what Dana White said after UFC 313. The promotion is simply waiting on Jon Jones to finally agree on a location and date for their fight. That's the only holdup right now. Aspinall isn't interested in distractions or fantasy matchups. He's laser focused on what's actually in front of him. He made that abundantly clear when he said, "That's off the table now. The Alex Pereira fight at heavyweight, or any other weight really, is not happening. John, there's only one thing to do, mate. Sign the contract and let's get a date going." He also emphasized that the UFC has already done their part. On John's side, we saw last night Dana White said everything is done on John's side. Now we just have to wait for a date and venue. We've got some good news coming soon, hopefully. And hopefully is the key word here. Fans are still desperately waiting for that official announcement. Everyone wants to see Jones and Aspinall finally fight to unify the UFC heavyweight titles. But until a contract is signed and a date is set, it's all still just speculation. After their war at UFC 313, both fighters took to social media to speak directly to their fans. Pereira wanted to reassure his supporters that he's doing fine and will be back better than ever. He's not letting this loss shake him, and if history has shown us anything, it's that Pereira learns from setbacks and comes back stronger. Meanwhile, the new champion Magomed Ankalaev made a bold statement to the UFC brass and the entire division. He's not going to be a champion who just defends his belt. He's planning to absolutely dominate. He said, "My #1 goal is to finish all my opponents and make it look easy." That's an incredibly ambitious mission, but if Ankalaev can maintain this momentum, he could have a long reign as champion. What do you think? Will Ankalaev hold the title for a while, or do you believe Pereira will reclaim the belt in their inevitable rematch? Israel Adesanya gave his live reaction to Alex Pereira losing to Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 313, and he was absolutely shocked by the judge's decision. Izzy didn't hold back his thoughts, making it crystal clear that he believed Alex won that fight. If you want to see his full breakdown, check out his reaction video on his YouTube channel. Link in the description. When the judges' scorecards were announced, Adesanya couldn't believe what he was hearing. He immediately reacted saying, "Wow, 49-46? What was that?" That score surprised a lot of people, but Izzy was especially vocal about it. He pointed out that Pereira had dropped Ankalaev, which should have made a significant difference in the scoring. He dropped him. Yeah, won that round too. One of Adesanya's biggest frustrations was Ankalaev's strategy. He felt like the grappling exchanges didn't do enough to justify such a wide margin on the scorecards. The holding. He didn't really do much with the holding. And then, in classic Izzy fashion, he summed up his frustration by saying, "What a stupid game we play." That's when he started second-guessing himself, acknowledging that MMA judging can be unpredictable and emotions run high in the moment. I don't know. I had Alex winning," he said, first confidently, but then taking a step back. "Yeah, I had Alex winning, but I'm not sure. I have to watch it again or score the fight properly." That's a fair point. Sometimes when watching a fight live, the excitement and energy of the moment can make it hard to assess every round objectively. But Adesanya's initial reaction aligns with what many fans and analysts were saying. This fight was much closer than the judges' scorecard suggested. What do you think? Did Magomed Ankalaev clearly win that fight? Or do you agree with Adesanya that Alex Pereira should have gotten the decision? Mighty Mouse has entered the debate about Jon Jones's MMA record, and he's making his position crystal clear. Whether people like it or not, Jones has a loss on his record. This discussion has been going on for years, and Johnson had some strong opinions on it. The argument is simple. Should Jon Jones be considered undefeated despite the one official loss on his record? For those who don't know, Jon Jones's only official loss came back in 2009 against Matt Hamill, but it wasn't a traditional loss where he was outclassed, knocked out, or submitted. It was a disqualification for landing illegal 12-6 elbows. This specific strike is banned in MMA, and because Jones landed it repeatedly, the referee stopped the fight and gave the win to Hamill via DQ. Many fans and even some fighters argue this shouldn't really count as a loss. They say Jones was completely dominating the fight, Hamill wasn't actually winning, and if the fight had continued, Jones would have secured an easy victory. But Johnson doesn't see it that way. He made his stance absolutely clear. He lost. He broke the rules. That's not a get your ass kicked loss, but it's an L. Jon Jones is the best 205 this planet has ever seen. But his record shows 28 wins and 1 loss. That's a disqualification loss. So what are you mad about? It's still a loss. That's the key point. Whether you agree with the ruling or not, the official record doesn't lie. Jones may have never been knocked out, submitted, or beaten on the scorecards, but he did break the rules, and in the eyes of the sport, that counts as a loss. What's your take? Should Jon Jones be considered undefeated, or does that DQ loss still count no matter the circumstances? It looks like we might be getting an epic trilogy fight between Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway, and this one could be Poirier's retirement fight. Recently, Poirier made it clear that he wants his final fight to be against a legend. He's had an incredible career, and it seems like the UFC is looking to book a matchup that does justice to his legacy. And what better way to close out his career than a trilogy bout with Max Blessed Holloway? If this fight happens, it will be the 3rd time these two warriors have met inside the octagon. Their first fight was way back in 2012 when Poirier submitted Holloway in the first round with a mounted triangle armbar. At the time, Max was just starting his UFC career, year, and Poirier was already an established contender. Their second fight took place in 2019 for the interim lightweight championship. It was an absolute war, with Poirier winning by unanimous decision after a 5-round brawl. The fight showcased Poirier's power at 155 pounds, while Holloway, who was moving up from featherweight, proved his insane durability and relentless pace. Now reports suggest that the UFC is actively discussing booking this trilogy fight. While nothing is official yet, sources say Poirier vs Holloway 3 is being worked on right now. If this is truly Poirier's final fight, there's no doubt that fans would love to see him and Holloway settle the score once and for all. Both men are known for putting on fight of the night performances, and a third battle between them could easily be one of the biggest fights of the year. So what do you think? Will Poirier vs Holloway 3 actually happen? And if it does, who are you picking to win this time?